Okay, hey guys, so it's Billy from the Hero Kids here with another profile from SJC Edison format. So today we have Gadgets. This is personally my favourite deck from the format and what I believe to be the strongest. It was also consistently the cheapest at the time, and I guess if you're looking to get into the format, it's technically the cheapest as well. So this is Gadgets. It is less synchro crazy. Well, it's completely the opposite of synchro crazy, but it lets you you're trying to play a 1-for-1 matchup where all your cards are just you're not expecting anything to happen with your cards. You're just trying to outmuscle your opponent. Your gadgets will constantly provide you a +1 every turn, and they just apply small pressure, which obviously today is quite like, I guess time stamping this video would be something like similar to Trickstar back in 2018, where they didn't really do much compared to the rest of the decks in the format, but they apply pressure, and this is the same. So your Candina is actually just 9, just like Candina. There's the 9 gadgets. So red gets yellow, red gets green, green gets yellow, yellow gets green. They all get their effects when they're summoned, whether that be normal or special. Yeah, these are just searchers. They're all mini Stratoses or Candinas that will just get you to your deck. And they slowly just, the pluses add up. And once a gadget has started summoning, you then in turn have a normal summon set for the next 8 turns, meaning that you can afford to draw into traps and just outgrind your opponent. So then to kind of this kind of solves the issue of drawing multiple gadgets. Machina Fortress's effect lets you discard machines whose level equal 8 or more to summon himself from the grave or field. Now what's interesting about this is if it's in your hand, it can recognize itself in the cost. So you discard 2 and special summon it because their levels exceed 8. So Machina Fortress then is like just spot removal. If it's destroyed by battle, you destroy a card, and if it's targeted by monster effect, whether that be a Caius, a Raikou, anything, you look at your opponent's hand and then you discard a card. So that's the Machinas, the Machina Gear Fortress. For the rest of the Machinas, we played 3 Gear Frame, 2 Peacekeeper. So Gear Frame is just an 1800 gadget that lets you add one of these guys. And they have the standard union effect. These are about union monsters that they'll then let you equip to a machine so that you can prevent them being destroyed. So Gear Frame and Peacekeeper have the same effect with the union part. But when Peacekeeper is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can add a union monster from deck to hand. So it's essentially like Buster Drake, but it only triggers when it's destroyed. So this can equip to a machine, protect the machine, it kills itself to protect the machine, and then it will trigger. And when it's destroyed, you get to add a union monster from deck to hand. So yeah, this will get you Gear Frame, and yeah, that's it really. That's to round up the monsters. I believe it's 14 or 16? 16. So then for the spells, this is the spell that kind of separates this gadget deck from the rest of the gadget decks. A lot of gadget decks were playing Gale the Whirlwind for monster removal, Doom Caliber Knight for negation, things like that, just to kind of play in your typical control deck of the time. But Solidarity let this deck be kind of different. It was the only gadget list out of, I think there was 4 and 5 in Top Cut that played Solidarity. Solidarity, for people who don't know, if everything you have in grave is a machine or of a certain type, all monsters of that printed type gain 800 attack. So if you go summon the gadget, add another gadget, they kill the gadget, you then go summon the other gadget, add another gadget, activate Solidarity, your gadget's now either 2000 or 2100 or 2200, which meant you could deal with a lot of things in the format. So yeah, this was basically how you killed your opponent and how your monsters got over their monsters. So yeah, 3 Solidarity. Then, like I said, with removal, you just play removal so that you can kill your opponents. I forgot to mention, this is Enye Gilmore's top 16 profile. I've kind of changed the extra deck, but I think the main deck's quite solid. I believe it's 41 cards, like Jeff's, or 42. It's one of the two. But yeah, so these are your monster removal. I guess this also falls into monster removal. But I'll go into them separately. This Smashing Ground being good because it doesn't target, so it lets you deal with things like Titanial. It's cool as well because Book of Moon was at 3 in the format. You could smash and ground your opponent's monster, then your opponent would be forced to Book of Moon the monster they want to keep, which meant if they had any other monster, Smash and Ground would destroy it. Nobleman's there to deal with cards like Raikou and Jar. Those are the 2 cards that you struggle with. They apply remove, like Jar, you're going to want to keep cards in your hand to play around heavy, and just the gadget's inherently adding cards to hand. So Jar can mess with you a fair bit, so you don't want to play Nobleman. And then Creature Swap is similar to Nobleman, where if your opponent's setting monsters, you don't want to lose to something like Raikou past turn 1, where you've probably got back row set. You just Creature Swap, take it, you can give them Peacekeeper, and then destroy the Peacekeeper, and then add a Gear Frame. So yeah, they're all pretty cool. Creature Swap has a nice interaction with the gadgets, where the gadgets replace themselves, so you lose the neg that Creature Swap inherently is. And then to round off the spells, we have 1 Limiter and 1 MST. This lets you do game shots because it doubles the current attack, not the printed attack, or the original, which means it has a nice interaction with Solidarity for killing your opponent, and then MSC just for back row removal. So then for the traps, we play 3D Prison, 2 Bottomless for monster removal. Again, like I was saying, these are just 1-for-1 traps, but when they work in tandem with the gadgets, they just help your gadgets stick on board, which means your gadgets are just floating, meaning that you can just keep attacking with the gadgets and ultimately whittle your opponent's life points down to nothing. Then we play 2 Royal Oppression. Royal Oppression, for people who don't know, both players can use it. And there's a trap card that lets you pay 800 to negate the special summon of a monster and destroy it. So this card's really restrictive. It's one of the early floodgates in Yu-Gi-Oh! But for the longest time, special summoning was just kind of something you could live without. But this is kind of when Yu-Gi-Oh! Started taking off more. So something like Oppression would cripple a lot of decks in this format. So some decks had to resort to playing Dust Tornado or Giant Trunade, things like that, just to deal with Road Oppression. It is a extremely stupid card. It was the original Vanity's Emptiness, and yeah, it's Road Oppression. And then the last 2 of is 2 Ultimate Offering. This is after this card's been fixed, so now, not just after a few years, but basically you can pay 500 to additionally normal summon or set a monster, and that's only in your main phase or your opponent's battle phase, which means you can flood your field with gadgets, activate something like Solidarity, and then just attack your opponent for game. So Ultimate Offering is quite silly. It also meant that it was a lot harder to kill you, because you pay 500 and normal summon a red gadget, that is mitigating the damage you're taking by 800. And then obviously 900 for green and 700 for yellow. So it was good. It helped you survive. It also helped you, and the gadget would place himself, so like it was essentially free. So yeah, that's a card that then you can help it to block 2 attacks, which then leave you with, say, I guess 15 or 1600 life points or whatever, which means that you can afford to use this on your next turn and try and kill your opponent. So then we have a Torrential Tribute. Torrential Tribute just being a removal trap card. Same thing with Mirror Force. Again, like if you go normal summon a Gadget, you're free to Torrential because the Gadget that you summoned has already replaced itself. So you're not losing anything. And then Mirror Force just being a bit better because you can protect your monsters, which then help you apply more pressure. And then we have 1 Static Road, 1 Trap to Shoot. Trap to Shoot being just a silly card in this format, especially with this deck where you're trying to play like a grindy 1-for-1 match with your opponent. So being able to know all their resources is really important. And Static Road is just there to protect your continuous spells and traps from being destroyed by Heavy Storm or Black Rose. So that's Static Road. Static Road brings up something interesting with the extra deck, but I'll get into that. So what separates this from Enye's list is I've just changed a few things, just a few numbers, and I think I put in something that I don't think he was originally playing, but we'll just get into it. So two Chimera Tech, you use it, you contact fuse your opponent's Cyber Dragon with one of your gadgets. It is also in a machine, so it doesn't conflict with Solidarity, and it gains 800, so it will usually be on 28 or 38 or something like that. So 2 Chimera Tech. I guess I'll just go over the machines first. There's 5 machines in the extra deck. There's an Armory Arm, which I don't think he's playing, but you can make it with something like Crabbombs, Plague, and the Peacekeeper. And it's a machine, which is important, which means it doesn't conflict with Solidarity. So there's that. Then we have Catastor. Similar to this, it's for when you take a level 2 or 3. It's when you take a level 3 and you use it with the Peacekeeper. And then similarly to this, when you take a level 3, you go Gadget and Tuner into this. You're mainly taking things like Airbellum, Gale, things like that. But basically these are all machines, so they do not conflict with Solidarity. On the topic of taking Gale from your opponent, which is a very popular tuner in the format, there is one Blackwing Armor Master who just needs a Blackwing tuner, but the non-tuner can be generic, so you can just use that with a Blackwing. This lets you deal with just monsters in general. Also, not being able to be destroyed by battle meant that in matchups that weren't like Dandy Warrior, because Dandy Warrior wouldn't usually be playing Gale anyway, it kind of like doesn't need to come up. But against Blackwings, unless they Icarus attack it, they're not really getting rid of it, which means that it doesn't overly affect Solidarity, but obviously you'd rather just not lose to turning off your own Solidarities. So then we have for the generic Synchros that you just play in hope that you take something off your opponent. These are the level 6s, which are for when you take a level 2 off your opponent with creatures up, or I guess a level 4, which there wasn't very many apart from Flammable Magician. You can take it and synchro into a level 6. Again, just generic synchros. Black Rose, Mistworm. Mistworm is weird because it's almost impossible to make, so I probably should just cut it for a 3rd Chimera attack because there's no real level 1s. But it's for when you take a level 3, you have a Peacekeeper and a Gadget, which theoretically can come up, so it's just there. A Thought Ruler, a Colossal Fighter. Colossal Fighter has the thing where it can come back, so it's good for that. and yeah, that's about it. And then to round off the Synchros, we play 2 Stardust. So this is where this comes in. Starlight Road can summon one of them, and you can synchro into the other 8s with brain controlling a Flamfell Magician to say. Now, where these 2 cards, I guess these 2 cards come into play, is that both of them have effects that will summon themselves from grave. So Stardust can negate a card that destroys a card on the field. You contribute it, negate, and in the end phase you special summon it. Colossal Fighter, when it's destroyed by battle, lets you summon a warrior from grave, so it lets you summon back the same Colossal Fighter. So these cards don't usually lose to Solidarity, but they're not like... they can conflict. The problem is with Starlight Road, is when Starlight Road summons Stardust, it doesn't summon it properly, it just summons it. So the card knows how it was summoned, which means if this is in the graveyard, you can't attempt to call the Haunted it or summon it with its own effect. So if you Starlight Road into Stardust, it is essentially a 2400 vanilla that has 1 negate, but then will just stay in your graveyard, which is kind of problematic with Solidarity. But hard synchro into 1. The only real way your opponent's removing this is by battle or by deprison. And obviously deprison doesn't affect Solidarity. So yeah, there's some conflicting things in the extra deck, but you don't make them. You play them because 1 in every 100 games you'll make a Brionic or a Goyo or a Black Rose, and that happens, so you might as well use the resource that we have. So yeah, just to recap, this is Enye Gilmore's top 16, I believe. Solidarity Gadgets, I believe it's the only one that topped. However, it is, as far as I know, it's the only one on the record for the event. I'll list some of the deck profiles from that. But yeah, this is the Gadget deck, which will be facing up against the Quick Draw Dandy list. I've built the sides from both decks, which you can just see in the list. And yeah, I'll be playing I think we'll do best of 5. It's probably better than doing best of 3s. And yeah, so for the first match that we'll be doing Gadgets versus Dandy Wire. So yeah, this is Billy from the Hero Kids with a Gadget deck profile from Enye Gilmore, signing out. So peace out, guys.